Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we're talking about actual plays.
Yes. Did you have a subtitle? Because I have written down Detriment to the Hobby.
That was what we read.
Okay.
Someone said actual plays are a detriment to the hobby.
Wow, that's pretty strong wording. I don't know if I agree with that, but at the very least, I do understand why people think that or say that.
I totally disagree with it and think that people need to get a life, okay?
Get alive. Okay, so I think one of the biggest detriments that people will see or acknowledge or whatever,
or believe,
hear the most, is that actual plays give an unrealistic example of how game sessions are for people who are new to the hobby, who have never played before.
So basically you're saying that if they watch a professional actual play, like
Right.
Critical Role or something called Dimension 20, is that what it's called?
There's all kinds of out there who are
But they actually have they're really produced. The people get paid probably.
Right. Yes.
Some of them are voice actors. So if you're coming into the hobby, so those are people that get paid to do it.
Yeah, they're professional productions, they call them.
So people who come into D&D who have watched those may or may not have unrealistic expectations.
Right.
But contrary to that, there are actual plays that people don't get paid for, which I have watched. And they are kind of like just what happens around a D&D table or a Zoom session of our Friday night games on Roll20.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the distinction that nobody makes, is that the professional production type actual plays versus guys or girls just playing around a table, which we have seen. You're right. It really mimics what we experienced at the game table. The people not paying attention, the people having a hard time making a decision. There's not this polished back and forth. So sometimes that happens, but not to the consistent level that trained professional people have when they're playing.
Right. So there has to be a distinction maybe between what kind of a actual play it is.
Right. And I think that's just exactly what the difference is between an actual play and these high production, and I'm going to use the term actual plays in quotes, air quotes, that you all cannot see, because they're not really actual plays, right? People, I mean, I guess maybe they actually play that way, like Critical Role, for example, because they were a group before they started recording it, right? And then later it became like a really big production, right? They had multiple cameras, they had really clear microphones and all this other stuff.
Well, and you even told me that you listened to the first season of that and you stopped listening because it was kind of not all put together, right? The first, and then once they got actual people putting money in or sponsoring them,
I forget how.
Then the production value came up because they could get more cameras, they could do more stuff, right?
At the very beginning, they were very, they were still pretty good at what they're doing, right?
Well, they were voice actors and stuff,
and so they were really into their characters and stuff like that. And you could totally tell that I thought they were professional, at the very least voice actors, and some of them, I don't know if any of them are real, like film actors, but anyway, but I could tell simply by their accents and stuff and how well they stayed in character that they were
used to that.
They were very used to it. And then I think they always say that they were voice actors goofing around playing a role playing game, but they're when you first watched them, Critical Role, they were at a big table, I think maybe one camera, and they were streaming like on YouTube or whatever, and they had glitches and things in the chat and stuff, and so it looked more unpolished, right?
Right.
So to me, I go, oh yeah. And so I watched I didn't watch the whole season, actually. I watched maybe, because they were like 3-4 hours long, these videos, and I didn't have enough time to watch a video. I could listen to them much later. That's what I used to do. But I never watched them because I didn't think that would be all that interesting. And I maybe watched 1 or 2, 3 episodes, and then I stopped watching it for years because and then all of a sudden they're making a ton of money. They're able to, I mean, they were very well known. It started getting well known and gaining a lot of publicity. And then when I saw it again, right, that production value had gone up, and they had directors and cameramen and all this other stuff. So it's so that I could see why people say, well, that's an unrealistic expectation of a game table in your house. But I have some other notes here. You got to remember that actual plays are entertainment. So if there is like their storylines, they make it because they know there's an audience listening, and they hit on things that are exciting, not necessarily like things a normal person playing would do or not do. So there's that. I think that changes a lot of the way they play, the way anybody would play if there's a camera on you and they're like go or action.
Right.
I was gonna say too that the players we already talked about, they're professional actors. And that is just they get paid for acting or talking, and that's a very I think it's a very high tier or high level of being able to impersonate or have a persona or being able to role play, because they have all these skills that they've learned. Sure, they go to acting school or voice acting school, or they at the very least they hone their craft exactly to a better degree. And I talked about this is a production. You cannot take away the idea that these are highly produced. Now I don't know how. I've never seen any of the other ones. I've only seen Critical Role, and I never actually watched the real popular policies. I see a little bit of it, but I used to listen to it on like a podcast,
right,
or
on
audio,
Spotify.
Yeah. So I don't know how well it looked. I've seen it, of course, every once in a while, and I go, wow, they really have a nice set and the whole deal. And so you could tell that from their humble beginnings to where they're at now is crazy, because the production values have totally gone through the roof. They have really professional microphones. They have not video, but like movie quality cameras and stuff like that. So again, you got to remember that because of all that, it's going to look and it's going to sound different than your actual play of your people playing around the table.
I know that you have always wanted to do actual play for part of our podcast, and you've put out the thing a couple of times, the camera, where like recently it was at, I think we were at Cowie's house and you put the camera out.
Yeah. And
I actually went through that to find some information that I was looking for.
Oh, the video.
And it's a lot to go for. Like, it was like an hour and something in before I found what I was looking for. And I'm like, all right, I was there. I just want to know this particular thing about some dwarves that we were talking about, right? And I was like, I had to listen to the whole thing and go through the whole thing again. And I'm like going, wow. And it looked fine and stuff, but you would have to edit some of the stuff out. Like when someone, I mean, unless you want just straight up actual play, which I've seen and it's fine, but you really have to want to find something, or you really have to enjoy those people playing the game. Because if there's not some kind of production where they take out little things.
Right.
Even like when we do the podcast, you take out the and buts and that kind of stuff, right?
I do editing of what we say and our dead air.
The dead space.
And in my jibber and jabber. Because I tend to, when I get excited or when I talk, my mind is it's
going
like,
too fast.
It is like when I used to write papers, I used to write the paper, type it out or whatever. And then in my brain, I would insert a word or
but you just didn't type all the words.
I just didn't type it. And then I would reread it. And I'm like, even when I reread it, we talked about editing. And even when I reread it, I would insert them again. It wasn't until like I handed you the paper and you're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, Saul. I'm like, it doesn't say anything, this sentence. I'm like, oh my God. Because you're reading it, you're editing it, you're inserting
you fill in stuff with
the same stuff over and over again. Yeah. And so I consistently will try to say something, and either my mind is too fast or too slow. I'll take it however way you want to. And I'll say things I'm like, I don't even understand what I was trying to say, because I'll just mumble or I mush the words together. So I'm like, gee. So I have to take those out Because I don't want people to actually realize that I'm not very intelligent.
That is so not true. But it has to do with the editing process for the polished actual plays is what I mean. Because I looked at a couple of I know that you tried to do an actual play when we had the boys and Stephen, Kathy, and Jason when we were doing some game. You put out the microphone so everybody, and you told everybody, okay, don't say extra words. Let's just play the game.
I actually told you guys that,
and it didn't work because when I listened to it later on, it was just it was like noise because everybody was talking at the same time, and it was like table talk and you talking, and everything was caught on the mic.
Right.
So unless you have extra channels and can get rid of the extra voice, the people talking at that end of the table while someone's trying to actually say something.
Well, there's that, right? Exactly. When unless they're your children and Steve, when you know that there's a camera on and this is for public consumption, it changes how you play.
Right.
But my son and my friends' kids didn't care.
You had the camera on when we played the One Ring at Cowie's house, and
it was a little bit better than
I know, but it was still there were still people. There was still table talk about the food, all kinds of different things going on.
Well, that's because Cowie puts out food, and people cannot resist it for any length of time, and that doesn't happen. Well, that does happen in real actual plays. That does not happen in Critical Role and all those other things.
Right.
They don't have. I mean, they may snack or something, but I never really watched them. Like I said, I didn't even watch Critical Role except back before. I think it was before even the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Well, then in the pandemic, it shows like Critical Role and actual plays hit differently because people were stuck and they couldn't get out, so they watched a lot of YouTube things and stuff.
Right.
So I think that if we go back to the expectations that people have of that of how a game is going to come, you've watched these actual plays, they're high productions, and you're like, oh, cool, I want to do this.
Right.
So somebody who runs D&D, and you go after the pandemic or online, you're like, you go and you play with them, and it's nothing like what you thought. Because people are talking on the side about the kitty something, and people are over here complaining about, I don't know if that's the right rule, and all of the noise is right there in front of you, and you may have a hard time paying attention to what's happening, and this isn't the way that you've seen it done.
Right.
So,
not orderly.
Yeah, there's no
chaos.
Unless Jolene's at the table going, it's your turn. What are you going to do?
unless the GM is really good at
wrangling the cats. Yeah.
Managing the table. Yeah. That's what I think is what they say. But you're right. I mean, I've never played in a session even close resembling Critical Role or any of those polished.
Then you've been playing for a long time.
I've been playing for a long time.
I wish there was video of when you played where there was an actual caller when you and Felipe went to Monterey when you were a kid.
It's not that exciting.
I just would like to see that.
I think I wish the opportunity was there for us to record stuff. I mean, we don't even have pictures of us playing.
Right.
Nobody bothered to have a camera. There was no photographer in any of our extended friends group, right? There was, because sometimes people love cameras or whatever, and they just take their camera everywhere.
Well, you would have to actually have film and get it developed and all.
Yeah, we're talking
about
film and
stuff,
cameras and all that stuff. But no, we have no pictures of us playing. I don't think.
Well, now
that's
you do.
Amazing, right?
Well,
but there is obviously people in the 70s and stuff who have a friend who, what do they call them? I don't know. In high school, I forget what they were.
They were photographers.
The audio video guys that always carried a camera with them, or were into photography, right? So they carried a camera.
That's what they called them, the AV guys.
Well, yeah, I guess it was audio visual. But anyway, we didn't have anybody like that in our group. There was nobody who liked taking photos of anything, right, as a hobby or as a memento. So because of that, there is no pictures of us playing Dungeons and Dragons, or even like our parents.
Just so you know, I did like to take photographers when I was take photographs when I was a teenager. And me and my brother went through them last year, and I was a horrible photographer. I chopped off people's heads. Everything was blurry because you couldn't tell the camera that we had. It was like one of those little tiny ones with the little that you could put a flash bulb on top, and
like an Instamatic or something.
it wasn't instant, but it was whatever. It was.
I didn't say instant. Like that's what they call it, Instamatic.
All I know is that they were horrible.
Oh. Well, I'm talking to people who actually had like decent cameras, I
Right.
guess. And unfortunately, nobody around us did, and so there's hardly any pictures. I don't think there's any pictures of us playing. And our parents were like working class people, so they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to stand around taking pictures."
Yeah,
of
no,
our kids.
of course not.
I mean, we barely have time to take a vacation, let alone.
Back to the expectations.
Right.
One of the things that I read was that a lot of people they call it the critical role effect.
Yes.
And the thing is that some people do character backstories good. Some people don't do character backstories. And I guess in Critical Role, the character backstory and the plot points that can come out of it and the hooks that you can give to the GM to put into the session is a big thing.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so when I was reading this, one guy was going, these people are handing me 4-page backstories and they want me to put it into the game. And I'm like going, I don't want to do that. That's way too much work. And I'm thinking, okay, I've been in games where people have handed 4-page backstories, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's in an email and they're like, this is my character, and they're really into the character. And that could be just them. This was before Critical Role. Like Steve likes to make up the story. Right.
In the end.
And Ian, yeah. And
Everybody else?
then there's people like Kathy who goes, oh, here.
My concept
me.
is I'm a gladiator. That's what I
And
like.
me going, well, which character am I playing today? So, because I play a lot of games, I'm like, backstories, it takes me a while to do a backstory. Like, I want a couple weeks to learn who this character is before I hand you a piece of paper with a backstory.
Yeah, I think I didn't push you guys to push you guys. I mean, and all of my players, even Augustine and all the kids before you entered the game, started playing with us. It was I didn't put like I could have said, well, I need backstories from you guys and have some criteria, and we're not going to start playing until I get those, and I'm going to need a week before we even start playing to read those and figure out a game that I want to run for you guys. No, I just started off with, I'm going to buy this adventure or come up with an adventure, and you guys make characters, and then we'll play next week. And then that's how it was. There was back. I mean, when I was running for 10, 12-year-old kids, backstories weren't a big deal. It was just about action and adventure, and then I trained them bad. I keep talking about training them badly, but yes, I trained them because like, well, my son doesn't care about backstories. I don't think that much. Lately, when he plays, a little bit more because people say, well, why is your character? Where does your character come from? That kind of stuff. So it's more. What is it? Then it's asked of him more than I ever did.
It's more prevalent these days for people to want to know what your backstory is versus when you were playing in the 90s and stuff and 2000s. People were like, there were people that were like really into that, and then there were people who were hack and slash, or what do you call them, murder hobos?
Yeah,
we're just here to go out and find the gold.
What is weird too is that, yeah, I think that is
because if you play vampire or something like that, you kind of have to have a backstory,
right?
Because you belong to a clan, and there's all kinds of different things going on, and
just
werewolf. Yeah, it's the nature of the game.
Well, it wasn't like I never came up with an idea of a backstory. Like my characters would have I would make a story in my head of where my character comes from, what happened, and stuff like that. But I never wrote it down.
But it wasn't like Felipe didn't say you have to have a backstory before we start playing.
It was just something personal, like, this is where my character comes from. This is why he's a minion hunter in Dark Conspiracy.
And I think that when people role play more, then that's ROLL versus ROLE.
I gotcha.
That maybe they want their character developed a little bit better so that they can kind of know where they come from and why they are going to do things. Versus we just met in a tavern and then you start to learn about the people as you go, which always makes me kind of, because if I met a bunch of people in a tavern, I'm not pretty sure I wouldn't take off with them into the woods.
You are sure you wouldn't take off with them? Yeah, I think that I did that once where I did do a long introductory adventure where you guys all did different things, and then
how we knew each other and
happened
stuff.
to be in the road at the same time
Yeah.
for different reasons.
Yeah.
And it worked pretty good. I thought it worked pretty good. The other time is I asked people what they were doing and who the characters were, and what I did was I tailored, like, you all knew a certain character, an NPC. That was it, and that was the whole point of the adventure, is to figure out what happened to this character. And they all had a specific reason why he was
Important to them,
right? And so when he goes missing, and a concerned friend goes to them and says, I can't find him, and they all kind of congregate and sort of know each other
peripherally.
But the central thing was that they wanted to find this guy who gone missing, and that was the start of the adventure. And I think it worked out really well. Unfortunately, when they finally met him, the character, they didn't like him, which was kind of weird. I guess that was my fault as a GM, as far as my my acting, my role playing was, because I was trying to make him. I don't know, it doesn't matter.
Anyway,
but they didn't like the character, and I'm like, because they told me this later. Like, man, we kind of wish we never found you.
So that was really the only detrimental thing that I could find when I was looking at things that people would have unrealistic expectations of how the game would go.
Okay, yeah. One thing I came across, and I haven't even thought about this because I don't know the rules of every game or D&D or whatever they were playing, was the idea that because some of these actual plays are very polished and are there for entertainment, they sometimes don't follow the rules exactly.
Oh.
And they kind of skim the rules, or the GM has like the caveat, to go with it or whatever, they home rule and stuff like that. So a lot of people who obviously are a little bit more versed in the rules, I wouldn't say
they're rules lawyers or something.
I wouldn't say they're rules lawyers,
but they just know some of the rules.
So notice that sometimes the GM would gloss over the rules or get the rule wrong. Right. And in fact, I remember I was listening to Critical Role, and then the GM for that, I forget his name. Matt Mercer. Yeah, he addressed the crowd or the audience and said, I know that I didn't get this right about the rule about this or that. I forget what it was. But he addressed the fact that sometimes he just does that to be expedient,
right,
instead of having to get bogged down.
You do the same thing as a GM. Sometimes you go, well, this is what the rule is, but you made sense when you said that, so we'll just go that way.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's my personal outlook on rules, that I'm not a rules lawyer, and I don't think people need the rules to defend their character from me. Right? Because I'm not.
You're not after their character.
Yeah, I'm not after, and I'm pro player, so it doesn't matter.
Well, but I just want to say that whether I can understand people seeing that on an actual play and going, oh, that's wrong. But I just want to say homebrew. Every single group has some rules that they homebrew because somebody doesn't like it. They don't understand why it has to be like that. Different things. Instead of this is the homebrew rule that we use. I've heard that at least 100 times.
Or table rules, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I think I do that constantly because I tell people, look, for me, the rules are there so we can play the game. But for me, it seems like the rule doesn't make sense and it's just for game balance or something that I don't understand, then I'm going to go with what makes sense to me. And hopefully it makes sense to everybody at the table. Which
is the original rule, right? Rule 0, that if you don't like the rules, adjust the rules, right?
Yeah, or ignore the rules.
Yeah.
Usually, that's almost in front of every game these days. That rule of the golden rule, whatever you want to call it, that the GM has as the final arbitrator of all rules in the game.
Which hits some people wrong, and some people are like, I understand that.
I understand that, yeah. As long as it's not negative, right? As long as the GM doesn't push that rule negatively against the players
he's not trying to kill them,
right?
Or he's not like an adversarial GM, and that's why people That's why there's rules lawyers, right? Because there's people that have been at a table with adversarial GMs who are like, you can't do that because I said so. And no, there are 80 orcs standing in front of you when you open that door. Different kinds of things, right? And people are like, well, that's not fair. Or I want to do this. And the GM says no. And they're going, but the rule says I can.
Right.
Or this is what the spell says. I don't care. That's kind of like a old arbitrary style. So sometimes when people say the GM has the ultimate authority to decide things, some people are like, but
They
those
cringe.
rules are there for to make me be able to play the game.
Yes. But I don't know how many people I've come across, and it has to be a very low number, that were that adversarial that you just, any idea that you had or ideas that you had, they were shot down. And they weren't shot down because of rules. They were shot down because
The GM didn't like it.
Because the GM didn't like it. And sometimes they had a valid reason, right?
Yeah.
Because if they allowed something to happen, it would break their game. The adventure would be over or something along those lines. But I don't know that, but the player may not know that. And like I said, I don't think, and I've played a lot of games, and I played, we go to conventions, and I play with people I don't know, and only I would count less than 5 that I thought, that guy, I don't like that GM because it seemed arbitrary when I could and couldn't do something. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what most people who rely on rules for that not to happen, that's why they are rules lawyers. They go, well, the rule says this. But again, the GM at any time could do anything they want. Now, players may not be happy, and he may not have a table full of players or any players if they keep pulling that number. But for the most part, it's been a real rare occurrence for me. That arbitrarily nasty GM that says no to you just because either they don't like you or they don't like the situation that it would arise if they let you do that.
Yeah, it's very far and few, right?
I think so. But they do exist. So if you're very unlucky, you might come across two and you're like, man, these...
And if they're not your friend, which is usually who you play with, right? Unless you don't know anybody that plays. But usually it's your friend. So a lot of people say they got used to that kind of GMing because it was their friend that did it, right?
Yes, especially if they're older players.
So are you done with your detrimental stuff? Because I wanted to talk about some of the interesting things of actual plays that don't have a high production value.
Let me look at my notes real quick. I was thinking about professional actors, professional voice actors, or whatever, being very good at improvisation. I was going to go into a little talk about, at a certain point, I thought a certain actual play was scripted because they were just like bouncing off each other. There was no, they were playing consistently for like 3 hours in character, and the GM was just back and forth. I'm like, man, it seems too clean.
I think it had to be edited or scripted, right?
Well, then later on I watched it and I watched it again, or I watched certain scenes, and I think maybe it's just because they're well trained and they could have, I'm sure they take a lot of improvisational courses or techniques and stuff like that, and I think and then I go, well, maybe they're not scripted. Maybe they're just, the GM tells them like an outline. This is how I want this situation to go, and then they go off of that. But now that I understand how well these actors act, I can see that happening. This improvisational role playing, and they're just doing what they're crafted to do, right? That they're good at their job. It's like whatever I do for a job, you get somebody who doesn't know or never done what I do. Where does this guy come from? Right? And then people look at me and I think I'm some like idiot savant because of how fast I do my job or whatever it is.
Just because you've been doing it for 30 years.
Yes, well, 20, but who's counting?
I think that's a good segue into actual plays that are not actually scripted, right?
Right.
We're just regular people, actual plays. And I can tell you that for me, you probably are looking for something when you go to watch it. Like I watched how to make a character for Shadowrun 5th edition.
Yes.
I watched 3 hours of how to make a character for Shadowrun 5th edition. And I watched these guys who, the GM had the book, The rest of them didn't, and they were all trying to make their character. So some people had their phones out trying to figure it out.
This is an older video, so
Yeah,
the
this
phones
was
weren't like huge like they are now.
No, this was, I don't know, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and Saul came into the room, and I was like halfway through it. He goes, and he sat down and he started watching it, and he goes, "These guys aren't doing anything." And I go, "They are. They're looking up stuff, and then they'll tell you." But it was like 3 hours of them doing it.
Yeah, she was already in for quite a bit, and I sat there for 10 minutes. Like, I can't handle this. I got to go do something. It was real, right?
Yeah.
They were making characters, which is really tough for most RPGs. Well, maybe not most now.
But for Shadowrun 5th edition, it's really tough.
It's really tough. And if they've never played, had one book, and they were looking at everything else on their phone, it was quite a challenge. And I was like, man, that's crazy. I mean, maybe they should cancel the session.
Don't they know that they can go online and use Chummer or whatever it's called?
Yeah, but if you don't know what you're doing, Chummer doesn't help you.
I know because I've been there and I've done it.
True. Yeah, the Chummer it's somebody made it.
It's not very user friendly.
Somebody made it, and so it's very...
So there's that kind of thing that you look for. And I was fascinated for like 3 hours because I was trying to make a character and I needed to have answers. And these guys didn't actually provide the answers, but I was trying to find them there. So that's one reason you might watch something. Maybe it's a new game and you want to figure out what the rules are.
Right.
And like Saul said, some of the people don't use the actual rules. But we did watch a game called Monster Hearts.
Yes.
And they actually had the playbooks up.
Yes.
And also on the screen. And they also had what they would have to roll because somebody put it into like a slideshow or something. What you have to roll for this. So that they could explain it to the people that were playing and the people that were watching could see it.
Right.
To help you learn how to play the game.
That was a pretty good production and I don't know how they did it because I just not that much of a audio visual wizard on YouTube or whatever.
It was like a Zoom meeting kind of thing,
Yeah.
and then they had a whiteboard or whatever so that they could put stuff up.
And they would put the playbooks and they would tell you what this character needed to roll and what they were rolling, and actually showed you what they rolled.
Right.
Sometimes, and I thought that was pretty interesting and very important.
It showed you how to play the game,
Right.
which is what I wanted to know because it was powered by the Apocalypse, right? And I wanted to know how it worked because it was like a Monster of the Week game, right? Monster Hearts is more about touchy-feely stuff.
Monster Hearts is that teenage one.
Yeah, where I think there was like a vampire or something.
Yeah, I think there was.
So there's that kind of thing that you watch, and then there's like if you want to watch a specific game to figure out what it's going to be like if you play it.
You're right.
Like I watched a lot of Shadowrun games, and some of them were like I couldn't watch it more than 10 minutes because the people never started doing anything. And then there was ones where they were really good, but you could tell that somebody helped. One of the people was good at the audio visual stuff because, and I think this was during the pandemic, so they were on different screens, but she called herself the Keeper, and they don't it's not the Keeper in Shadowrun, but but she was the GM, and she would tell this is what happens, and then they go to the other person and he would say whatever he's doing. So it was like it was helpful to understand how the game goes.
Right.
I just wanted to have ideas of how people played Shadowrun because I wanted to know what my character. I was trying to figure out how to be the magic user, and I'm like I know how to be a magic user, but I'm not totally sure how it works in Shadowrun.
Right. Yeah.
But they didn't go into that, like how many dice you roll and the force and all the kind of different things you have to put into it.
Right.
Which was what I was looking for. But I liked the story, so I watched it.
So I've even done that lately. I mean, I've been playing a long time, and I've been wanting to run this game called Salvage Union for a while. I kickstarted the original book a few years ago now, and I just haven't got it to the table. Right? It's about giant mechs in the apocalypse, and it seems like an interesting and it seems like an interesting idea. And the rule mechanic is super easy. It's just a D20, and there's a range of what is good, bad, right? And I just want to see how
other people play.
Yeah, how it flowed. How what they did was interesting, and how you can make things interesting. So I started watching actual play. Unfortunately, I was real tired and fell asleep because I woke up and I was an hour in. I'm like, oh wow. So I went to bed.
I might have missed something.
I went to bed. But at the very least, when I was watching it, the person was explaining it because it was a brand new game, and they run the whole point of their YouTube channel. I forget what it's called.
Anyway,
I'll look it up later. But the whole reason they play is to get games on the table that they've never played before, like to experience new games. So like the GM was obviously somebody who had read the rules, and he's explaining stuff not only to the players but to the audience, right? How this works and stuff like that. So I thought it was very interesting on his approach in that sense. And then later on, the interaction between the players and the players, and then therefore their characters. I thought it was interesting. It was kind of a basic adventure, right? They're just, it was an introductory adventure, right? But it was a lot.
I was showing you how the game mechanics worked,
right? But then again, there was a lot of just banter between the players, right? They were just role playing, just doing all kinds of, having conversations, trying to get information from NPCs, and all these things that didn't require a die roll. So as I've gotten older, I want less die rolling and more people just reacting to stuff, and even just role playing with each other, like having conversations and having discussions about where to go from one place to another, what to do, and those kind of things. And if they do it in character, that's even more fun. I think watching actual plays from non-professionals is very informative, because then you kind of see what hang-ups happen, or what rules that might be misunderstood, and how the game might flow at your table.
But I also think that you're going to be wanting to look for something when you're not just going to want to randomly pick one, because I've done that, and like Saul can attest that 5 minutes in, I'm not watching this because this person is really annoying, or they haven't done anything. How far do I have to fast forward before they get to the actual game?
Right. And a lot of it is just personal choice. Like sometimes I was watching one on YouTube, and they were eating chips or something. So all you hear is, and they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be eating.
And that was one of the complaints I saw about actual plays, was that 4 people's mics work really good, one person's mic doesn't work good, yes. Or they're eating and you can hear every bite that they're taking, things like that. And I'm like going, well, that is an actual play, right? Because I've been sitting there with someone eating chips next to me, and I can't hear anything but crunch, crunch, crunch.
Yeah, so put the chips away.
Yeah.
If you do an actual play. I think actual plays can be very, very useful for somebody who's never played and doesn't have a clue as to, because everybody, I don't know about everybody, but a lot of people have an idea what role playing is, right? Oh yeah, I know those geeks that played Dungeons and Dragons in high school, or they had that club, or I've seen it on Stranger Things, or even if you go way back, I saw them playing that on E.T., right? Yeah. And
the funny thing is that when no matter, I know people say they're going to have or what do you call it? Expectations that are unreasonable.
Right.
But the thing is that whether you go into a real game or you're watching a virtual game or an actual play, everybody's going to have expectations. Even when you go to the first time you play D&D or the first time you play it, you may not know what to expect, but you have something in your head.
Right. You have an idea, even if it's wrong or not exactly set in reality. Right. Because people always think, when I used to tell them I played D&D when it wasn't so popular, they're going, oh, do you dress up? I go, no. Because they thought that was just normal. I go, no, I don't know, we don't dress up. I go, are you sure? I go, no, we don't dress up all around the table. We just pretend. That's the whole point. But then as I've gotten older, I've shed a little bit of being embarrassed about stuff, because I don't give a crap so much about it so much. So I could see dressing up and playing in character.
Okay.
I could see people doing that, and it doesn't bother me. Okay.
Oh, it bothered you before if you saw people
it didn't bother me, but I wouldn't think it as being weird or strange. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. They're having fun playing their wizard character in a top.
It's a hybrid lark.
Yeah.
Lark.
Or LARP.
Lark.
Or LARPing, LARP. Right? I'm not so, because I personally would not want to play in a LARP, but then maybe.
There you go.
Maybe depending on what kind of game it was.
So, do you think that actual plays are detrimental to the D&D or the hobby?
Yes and no. I think the real polished ones can set. I still set expectations too high for people beginning, but the real ones where somebody just post what their game on YouTube with no extra flashiness and stuff like that. And the realist, that's a real nitty gritty role playing game around a table at home can be useful because they go, oh, that's what they're doing. That's how it's like. It's not like I'm 100% in character for 3 hours.
That might be detrimental to the hobby too, because people are going to go, I don't want to do that.
But it's realistic, right? So, but I think having actual play with that real high production, it's something that people can aspire to.
Right.
Like having, I don't know.
And it brought a lot of people into the game.
That, at the very least, is true. I mean, a lot of people into the game, into the hobby, or at least interested in the hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were at a Comic-Con last year, people were saying, we were sitting in some panel with some of the voice actors
of
and it
Critical
was,
Role.
and I was shocked at, there were like 3 people that stood up and said, I ran my first game because of you. We started playing because of you. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, oh, I've never seen Critical Role. I'm thinking to myself going, oh, that's pretty cool. So
yeah, it was the married couple from the show. Well, no, I think there's two married couples, but it was Travis and I forget the other lady's name. But yeah, they were up there, and I was equally shocked at how many people stood up and goes, oh, I started playing Critical Role. I started playing D&D because of you guys. Our campaign's been going good for 3 months. And there was also people who were, we're going to start playing the game next month because I watched Critical Role. I'm like, wow. And it was kind of surprising to me that so many people were just like, yeah, because of Critical Role, they start playing D&D.
So there you go. Maybe it's detrimental, maybe it's not, but have fun playing. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.